You're listening to Short Inspirations from Ralph. Overcoming the Odds, Part 5. You know, the end of Joseph's story was spectacular. And there were two things that propelled Joseph into overcoming the odds. First of all, he kept a sweet spirit all the way through, didn't hold grudges, and this comes out near the end of his story. Secondly, he knew that God was with him, and God was with him, because he was totally conscious of the presence of God right through the good, the bad, and the ugly of his years. And because God was with him, Joseph, despite the circumstances, prospered in everything he put his hand to. Get this, when he was in prison, remember we said he was there for 13 years, he was given the care of the other prisoners. In other words, he was given position to look after the rest of them. And if you read a story in Genesis 40, it relates to the king or the Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker who had offended their master. So they were in prison, and they had each a dream, and Joseph accurately interpreted both of those prisoners' dreams, and they came true. And one was restored to his position, the cupbearer, before the king. And to cut a long story short, Pharaoh himself, also called the king, had a very disturbing dream. And then the cupbearer, who had his dream interpreted by Joseph in prison, remembered a couple of years later to mention Joseph that he could possibly interpret Pharaoh's dream, whereas his wizards couldn't do that. And so Joseph was brought before Pharaoh, and he interpreted what exactly would happen in the years to come based on the dream that Pharaoh had. So we pick up the story in Genesis 41:41. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen, here's the third coat, and put a chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and people shouted before him, Make way! Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. And of course he was there because he was to save the whole land of Egypt, and the world actually, from a great famine that would happen in the future. So we see these three coats. The coat of salvation is the multicoloured coat, being a free gift from the Father to the Son. And likewise, salvation is a free gift from God to us. The coat of Christian character, our responsibility to walk circumspectly before our God. And lastly, there is this coat that Pharaoh put on Joseph, the coat of the overcomer. What did Joseph have to overcome? You could boil this down to one thing: great injustice in his life. He had reason to be hurt and even reason to not forgive those who hurt him, because it just wasn't fair. But you know you've forgiven people when you have the power to hurt them and you don't, and you even bless them instead. Then you know that you've forgiven them. And so he had to overcome resentment and bitterness and hatred. And that is the major key for you and I, because we will be treated unfairly in our life. It is part of life, and it's our reaction to that is the key to overcoming. You see, Joseph forgave his brothers. That's the end of this great story, a spectacular end, where they came for food, and he recognized them, but they didn't recognize him, and he could have harmed them. But you know what he said in Genesis 50 verse 20? He said, As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring about this present result, to preserve many people alive. So all the way through there was the plan of God, and all the way through in your life there is the plan of God. And today the coat of salvation is available to you. It's been skillfully put together by the hand of the Father. You have been skillfully put together, created and joined together in your mother's womb. So you are no accident, and God has a plan for your life. My encouragement to you is to be a person who is indeed an overcomer. God bless you.